Another day, another Chris Stokes tubi film, but at least this one got a foreign man. At the start of the story, Marlon rushes to rescue his wife, Paula, who is strapped with a time bomb. In a panic, he calls his best friend Thomas Ryan, an EOD specialist. Basically a bomb squad, because Thomas's D is bomb.com. Thomas warns him not to approach her, urging him to wait for backup since he fears Marlon might trigger the device. There's no time to argue, so Marlon enters the house. Paula desperately begs him to remove the bomb, but Marlon has no idea what he's doing. Moments later, Thomas and his team, including Julia, burst through the door. Thomas instructs Julia to detonate the bomb safely, but a call comes through and the bomb explodes. Paula is killed instantly, leaving Marlon shattered and scarred forever. 10 years later, Thomas has since retired from the EOD and divorced his wife, Kate. He wakes to a call from his daughter, Ebony, a successful social media influencer. He complains that she's always on her phone, but she counters that it's necessary for her job. Thomas insists she needs balance and should spend time with people who matter, like him. Ebony fires back that he chose work over her mother. When Thomas asks about Kate's boyfriend, Daniel, Ebony says they've already broken up. Kate must be stupid leaving a foreign man like Thomas. Not wanting to discuss Kate further, Thomas suggests a dinner date that evening, but Ebony declines. She's got a concert to attend. She promises to see him the next day, though. Shortly after, Thomas gets a call from an unknown number. The voice says cryptically that his life is about to change. He dismisses it at first, unsettled but uncertain. Meanwhile, Ebony is celebrating with her friend Riley, who just hit 10 million followers. The two decide to mark the occasion at the Backstreet Boys concert that night with their friend Monique. Ebony is planning to livestream everything so her followers can be part of it. She also mentions she just scored a free ride through a new rideshare app called Pick Me Up. That afternoon, Thomas shows up at Kate's place. He claims he's just checking in as a friend, but Kate isn't buying it. She knows he's there for her kitty cat. He mentions hearing that she and Daniel split up and asks if she wants to talk about it. Kate shuts it down but lets him inside anyway, offering him tea. Once they're settled, Kate cuts through the pleasantries and asks why he's really there. Thomas admits retirement's been lonely. He misses his family and especially his old friend Marlon, who died in that bombing a decade ago. Kate's response is blunt. It's too late for them. All they can do now is co-parent Ebony properly. Thomas accepts this and leaves quietly. Later, Ebony and her friends are ready for the concert. As they wait for their rideshare, they go live on TikTok, excitedly sharing the moment with followers. When the car pulls up, they pile in, still recording, hyping up the rideshare service since they were paid to do so. The driver politely introduces himself as Carl. He mentions they can make additional stops if needed. The girls are loving the vibe and continue their live stream from the ride. Thomas gets another call from the mysterious stranger. This time, the caller drops details about his retirement and divorce.
Your life must suck.
Thomas demands to know who it is, but the answer chills him. The caller doesn't matter. It's who he's abducted that counts. Thomas spirals into panic. He tries calling Kate, but she's in the kitchen with music blasting and doesn't hear the phone. Desperate, he calls Ebony. She assures him she's fine and mentions she just talked to her mom minutes ago. That does little to ease his mind. Thomas drives straight to Kate's house and pounds on her door. Kate, thinking it's an intruder, grabs a pan to defend herself before opening up and nearly hitting him.
Nigga, I was cooking. Why are you even here?
Thomas explains the strange call and his fear for her safety. Kate thinks he's being paranoid from his years on the bomb squad and tells him to just stroke one out and force himself to sleep. The girls make a stop at a gas station, and the hoes continue filming even while getting drinks at the gas station. This would PMO so bad in real life. After the girls continue toward the concert, Carl takes an unexpected turn. Ebony notices and points it out, but Carl insists it's a different route.
My apologies, Miss Maxine, but we are taking a different route tonight.
If you watch The Parkers, you already know who that voice belongs to. The girls get nervous and ask him to pull over, sensing something's off. Instead of stopping, Carl accelerates.
We hate this company! Don't use it! They suck!
He drives them to a remote spot and orders Riley and Monique out. Monique bolts immediately, but Riley refuses to abandon Ebony. Carl shoots her without hesitation, dumping her on the roadside. Ebony tries to run, but Carl grabs her and forces her back into the car. As she's desperately trying to tell her followers she's been kidnapped, Carl releases gas that knocks her out. Ebony wakes up strapped to a time bomb with restraints binding her, and the man even got it live streaming on TikTok so he can get some Galaxy money. Carl calls Thomas and orders him to turn on the news. When Carl reveals he has his daughter, Thomas panics and switches on the TV. The news confirms his worst fear. Ebony has been kidnapped.
If you have any information on this crime, please call your local police.
Oscar performance worthy from Monique. Thomas offers Carl anything he wants to spare Ebony, but Carl's response is chilling. He doesn't want money or valuables. He just wants Thomas to suffer. Thomas immediately contacts Captain Martins at the station, begging him to use every resource to find Carl. Martins reports they can't pinpoint his location, but they're tracking a live stream coming from what appears to be an empty warehouse. In her captivity, Ebony asks Carl what he really wants. He says he wants his wife back, but it's impossible because of Thomas. Carl then removes his face covering, and Ebony is shocked. It's Marlon, disfigured and scarred, the way my jaw stayed in place. Kate, watching the news coverage, accuses Thomas of standing around while their daughter is in danger. Kate cuts through his excuses, telling him to stop whining and get their daughter back safely. Meanwhile, Riley remains hospitalized in a coma, fighting for her life. Captain Martins brings in a negotiator named Sam Lewis to try reasoning with Carl. When Carl calls Thomas again, he makes another threat. Ebony will end up like Paula. That one word changes everything. Thomas realizes his dead best friend Marlon is alive and orchestrating revenge for his late wife. Marlon survived the explosion and has been planning this the whole time. Thomas failed to save Paula then. Now Marlon's testing whether he can save his daughter. Thomas knows exactly where they are, the same warehouse where Paula died, because for some reason, the warehouse stayed intact after a big explosion. Thomas gears up to go. Captain Martins, worried about his safety, immediately dispatches backup to follow him. Ebony asks Marlon why he's doing this to her. Marlon explains that Thomas was supposed to help disarm the bomb on his wife's body 10 years ago. Instead, Thomas sent in his associate Julia, who cut the wrong wire. The explosion killed Marlon's wife and left him with severe burns covering half his face, and now he looks like a saggy ball sack. Marlon sets the bomb on Ebony to detonate in 3 minutes, the same time Paula had. He wants to see if Thomas can save his daughter this time around. On the way to the warehouse, Thomas calls Eric and requests a bomb suit. He explains the situation, and Eric agrees immediately to help and bring protective gear. When Thomas arrives, Lester, one of his former trainees, outfits him with tech glasses that let him see inside the warehouse remotely. Lester tells him not to do anything stupid and to follow instructions exactly. Thomas initially bristles at taking orders from someone he trained years ago, but Lester points out it's been a decade, and Thomas's judgment might be clouded right now. They reach a compromise. Thomas suits up and enters. What kind of bomb suit doesn't have a helmet? Tubi budget lacking. The warehouse appears empty, but Thomas hears Marlon's voice echoing through the space. Thomas knows Marlon blames him for his wife's death. He apologizes, explaining he was just following protocol and trying to keep Marlon away from the device. He begs Marlon to release Ebony, who's innocent in all this. However, Marlon believes Ebony played a role because her phone call distracted Thomas right when Julia cut the wrong wire 10 years ago. Thomas challenges Marlon to face him directly, but Marlon isn't there. He's communicating remotely. When Thomas hears Ebony's voice, he rushes toward her. Working with Lester through the tech glasses, they assess the device. The bomb strapped to Ebony is wired to another bomb beneath her chair. Ebony's social media career really about to blow up after this. Lester instructs him to cut the connecting wires while maintaining pressure on the chair to prevent detonation. The problem is that the bomb directly on Ebony might not be disarmable. Lester suggests they just get her out regardless. Thomas calls for his team to bring weights to keep the chair bomb stable while they extract her. Thomas moves Ebony to the warehouse's center. Eric steps in to find and cut the right wire. The moment Eric makes a cut, the timer starts accelerating wildly. Thomas rips the bomb off Ebony and holds it, willing to go with it if it means saving his daughter. Everyone watching the live stream braces for an explosion, but like my sex life, it never comes. Eric checks the device and realizes it was fake all along, just a mind game. Marlon calls back immediately with shocking news. He's at Kate's house, and the real bomb is there. He explains that killing Ebony wouldn't be true revenge because it wouldn't equal the pain of losing his wife. He wants an eye for an eye. He's going to kill Kate. Marlon strikes her unconscious and forces Thomas to race across the city. Thomas arrives at Kate's house armed but unprepared for what he finds. Marlon comes out holding a smartphone he designed to control the house's security system and the bomb. He warns that opening any door or window triggers detonation. Thomas asks why he doesn't just kill them and be done with it, but Marlon's answer reveals his entire motivation. It's about control. He's always been a passive bottom and weak, but losing his wife changed him. He built this elaborate plan to take back control and get his revenge. Marlon explains the bomb is connected to the house's electrical system and has been slowly charged by solar panels on the roof. Thomas drops his weapon and tells Marlon he has something to say. Thomas reveals he always suspected Marlon survived. During the original blast, Thomas hit his head and lost his memory of those events. When the bomb went off 10 years ago, it would have detonated regardless of who tried to disarm it. Julia's mistake wasn't her fault alone. Marlon shares his own story. After his wife died, he contemplated suicide. Instead, he decided on revenge. He faked his death and started working as a DoorDasher to survive. That's how he spotted Ebony. Eventually, he created his own fake rideshare service with AI websites, setting up the perfect trap. Getting Ebony was always the strategy to reach Thomas. Thomas argues that the bomb was always going to blow. It wasn't anyone's fault. Marlon dismisses this as mind games. Regardless, he's determined to finish this. Before he can trigger the explosion, Thomas shoots him and throws several punches. He grabs the smartphone, but he has no idea how to stop the detonation sequence. As the countdown approaches 0, Thomas grabs Kate and urges her to hide in the fireplace, betting their lives that the structure will protect them. Thomas attempts one last rescue of Marlon, but Marlon ambushes him from behind. Thomas fights back, throws him down, and finally pulls the trigger. The bomb explodes with force, but as Thomas calculated, the fireplace shields them both. They survive, though not without injuries. Weeks later, Riley has fully recovered. Thomas and Kate have reconciled and gotten back together. They've since found bigger and more pleasurable explosions after the bomb. Ebony returns to her live streaming life with friends and family, but this time she's learned something important. She takes moments away from her phone to actually be present with the people she loves. Honestly, this was such a sweet ending, and I'm not even a Chris Stokes fan. What did you guys think of this one?
If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because YouTube isn't recommending my videos. And if you would like to watch more foolishness, click here or here.